So all I gotta do now, nice tripod, is get my hands wet. So I get both my hands wet, put a little bit of water on it, and then the way that I center is 3 points of pressure. So the first point of pressure will be like this, the palm of my hand, like the more fat eater part of the palm of my hand is pushing to what would be 12 o'clock on the clock
Of your non-dominant.
of my non-dominant hand, and I have my wheel turning counterclockwise. If I was going the other way, it would be the right hand on there.
Right.
But my left hand is on there because I'm turning counterclockwise. And then my other hand has the fingertips all kind of working together as one unit, and those are pulling. So one is pushing, the other one is pulling simultaneously, and this one is pulling right to 6 o'clock, right? Yeah, 6 o'clock. And then the third point of pressure is the top, because if I just squeeze on it, it's gonna go up, but it's gonna get all wonky. So if I don't want it to have the wonky top, I gotta have both my thumbs working as one unit on top. And I'm not really using the tips of my thumbs because I don't want to dig into it. I'm using kind of like the length of my thumb. So all those 3 points of pressure together will give you this slightly domed, more or less cylindrical shape, but it's still not fully centered. So what you have to do is distribute that clay around a little bit. So there's a process called coning and doming. So coning is when you squeeze, when you pull towards you, push away from you, but keep your thumbs on top, just kind of resting on it. So I put more pressure from the sides and kind of eased off the pressure from the top. So it raised into a little cone. Yeah.
When you're doing that, are you like pushing up as well?
I'm not pushing up, I'm
You're
just
not.
squeezing. So the clay will go where you let it go.
Right.
So if you squeeze from the sides, it's gonna wanna go up. And if you just release pressure from the top a little bit, it will go that way. And then doming is the opposite. So keeping those hands there to guard the clay so it doesn't get off-centered when I squeeze down. So I'm just pressing down. And now it's domed.
So easy.
And it feels pretty centered now. But generally you gotta do that thing like 2 or 3 times. So a cone, dome,
Now why do you do it 2 or 3 times?
to really distribute that clay, because it's every time you do it, it gets more and more centered. But you don't want to do it too many times because then you start to remove the slip from the surface. Also, if you scrape on it too much, you're gonna remove the slippery stuff and you're gonna end up with all the grit. So you gotta think about your hands like a rudder on a boat. So like what they're doing is directing. They're not so much like scraping, but just directing the direction that the clay will go. So I'm gonna do that one more time just for fun. So cone, dome. And you notice like my hands didn't really move a lot. All I was doing was changing the pressure. So pressing on the sides, pressing on top. I'm not like doing a lot of different things with my hands. They're always kind of in that formation, the 3 points of pressure. 1, 2, 3. So now that I've domed it for one last time, it feels a little off-center now. So sometimes you can get it off-centered by doing all those things, but if you do it right, you won't. So I just put that slip back on there that was accumulated on my hands, because that's good stuff. It helps it lubricate it, make it slipperier. So now I can start opening this up and making a cylinder. So first thing, I keep my hands in that same formation, but now I'm gonna use the tips of my thumb and just the right hand. So keeping my hand wrapped around the side helps to stabilize my hand, and so I can find the center with my thumb, and I can feel pretty much like where the center is and just go straight down. But I don't want to go all the way because I want this to have a bottom, to be a cup. not just a cylinder with no bottom. And I don't want to go all the way. I don't want to go too far, but I do want to go pretty far. And you can actually test how thick the bottom of your piece is by just stabbing it with a needle tool. And I think I went a little too far there. So like that's how thick the bottom is. So basically you can tell how thick things are by poking them and then putting your finger where the tool ends, and you can see how thick things are that way. But I did that to the bottom, but I made it too thin, so I'm gonna actually push some more clay down there, which I don't recommend doing that. Just try to avoid that by not making it too thin. Okay, so now that I've thickened the bottom up a little bit, now to open this up into a short cylinder, keeping my hand wrapped around there, and then you notice that I put more water in there. That's because when I opened it up, I removed every bit of water, so I gotta add more just to keep it slippery. So now I'm gonna squeeze my thumb against the palm of my hand like that, but keeping the hand wrapped around.
What are you doing now?
So I'm just squeezing. So like the clay's right here, and I'm squeezing the clay
And that's making it.
into my hand. So that's making the opening bigger and it's making it a little bit taller. And it's also giving me, the bottom's a little thinner than the top right now. And that's good. I like to keep the top a little thicker throughout because that keeps it round. If you make the top too thin right away, it's gonna start to move around a lot and not be round. And it's also gonna flop more easily. So by keeping a little bit more thickness up here, I can make sure that this remains cylindrical. All right, so now that I've done that, I can compress the bottom a little bit just to make it flatter. And it also prevents cracking as it dries.
Your speed has been pretty consistent the whole time.
Yeah,
And
so
it's
I never
kinda
go
slow.
fast.
Yeah, it's kind of slow.
Just kind of throw at this speed pretty much the whole time. I even slow down as I get closer to the end. But everybody does it differently. I knew a guy that would throw like super thin porcelain pieces and his wheel was like full speed the whole time. So I don't know, I'm gonna teach you the way that I do it, but you're gonna learn your way.
Right.
So you're about half speed right now, yeah?
Not even, like this is half speed right now. Yeah, I guess. It's pretty slow. So now, to raise this into a taller cylinder, I'm gonna do some lifts, and my lifts are done by having one hand on the inside. So in this case, it's my left hand. And the inside hand's job is to keep this shape straight. Because I want to just make a straight up and down cylinder right now. So my inside hand is gonna remain in this straight fashion. And my outside hand's job is gonna be to actually lift the clay. So to lift the clay, the hands gotta work together. It helps if you like have contact between both hands. And to lift, I have to create a divot at the very bottom so that I have a mass of clay that I'm actually lifting. And you're gonna see that, I put a little bit more moisture on there. You're gonna see that this ring of clay is what's being lifted if I keep my finger underneath it and I don't go past it. So I'm just distributing that ring of clay throughout the form.
So your outside hand, you're using that like that?
I'm just got my two, am I using my middle finger, the tip of my middle finger? And so after every lift, I put a little bit more water on there. Not too much. You don't want to create a puddle inside because then that'll weaken the form. But I generally like to finish a piece in 3 lifts. So that was my first lift. My second lift, I make a little divot. And my hands are working together. So like in the inside is just straight and I'm pushing on it. And so that creates this
What I
bump.
find kind of tricky to decipher, are you moving your hands up
Yeah,
As you
I think the inside hand, it kind of stays still
Okay.
with this kind of shape. If I'm making something taller, then yeah. But with something this size, my inside hand kind of just stays
Okay.
put.
And then the outside.
But it does move a little bit. It does move with it. So the outside hand is doing all the work.
Are you really applying much pressure between your two hands, or are you mostly just going up?
There's a little bit of pressure, but I ease off as I get closer to the top because it's a little more delicate up here. So that was 2 pulls or 2 lifts. I'm trying not to call them pulls because I'm not pulling, I'm lifting. And so after every lift, I apply more moisture, and just enough to keep it slippery. Not like I'm not like pouring water on it. All right, and I mean I could call this finished at this point, but my final lift is actually gonna make it really thin, and I'm gonna try to achieve a maybe a little bit wider cylinder that's more straight, so it doesn't have these divots. So again, make a little divot at the bottom, and I'm actually pushing out a little bit at this point with my inside hand to keep this bump there. And that bump is the most important part of doing the lift. And it kind of dissipates into the form. Alright, so now this is pretty much a finished form. You can see that it got a little twisted. And that's just because I'm going a little slower than I normally do. You can use a rib to fix that twist.
That might make it more interesting to twist.
Yeah, sometimes I do it on purpose, but like I don't like that one.
It shows how.
So
Yeah.
So I got minimal tools. You don't need that many tools to throw. I like to use this wooden knife. Needle tool sometimes, not really. I mean, just to measure the thickness of things. A rib. This is a fancy rib, but the wooden ones work pretty good. And then the wire tool. So what I was gonna do is, at this point, I should remove water from the inside. I got a little bit of water in there, so I'm just gonna take my sponge and absorb all that water out of there. And I'm also gonna straighten the outside. And this part actually does a couple things. So I'm gonna straighten the outside, but I'm also gonna remove all the slip from the surface. And I keep my hand on the inside for support. Then I use my rib to scrape all the wet stuff. But I didn't really get it that straight, so I'm gonna just hold it there. And so like I got a cup.
Make it look so easy.
So now what I'm gonna do is use my wooden knife, and I'm just gonna make a little incision at the bottom. And that also does a couple things. And I'm also gonna remove all the slip from around it. So what that incision does is it gives it a little shadow down there, which looks nice, but it also creates a channel for the wire to travel. So I take my wire, and I got like an extra large wire tool here, but the other ones work fine. And so to cut this off the wheel, I want to keep a nice straight line that I can push down on the surface of the wheel. I don't want to hold it like this and then pull and then kind of lift as I pull. So I want to keep this really flat on the wheel head. And I always pull towards me. You got better leverage if you pull towards you than if you push. Because sometimes if you push, you'll lift a little bit and then create like some lines down there, which could be cool. But
And you don't put water on before you.
I never do that.
I see people do that all the time.
I don't know why they do that.
So it's not necessary.
It kind of messes up the next part of the process. So to lift it, I got my hands dry just by scraping them on there. And I already scraped all the slip off the surface of this. So this is relatively dry, my hands are dry. Like I was saying, the clay sticks better to dry things than to wet things. So like it's gonna stick to my hand. And all I gotta do is just pick up on one side and pick up the whole thing. And I can just put it there. And then it doesn't really get warped that much, like maybe a little bit, but I can just kind of push it. But if you do it really gently, it just sticks to your hands, and all you gotta do is just pick up one side and set it down. So now, since we're gonna be making a lot of things.
Can I ask you something real quick?
Yeah.
When you did that while the wheel is turning, do you always do it like that?
I do, just because I don't like to have like the lines that the wire makes go in just one way. I like the lines to like have a little spiral to them. So now, this little patty of clay is left there. This is really nice because the clay sticks really well to clay. So if I get this wet, it won't stick as well. So don't get this wet, just leave it like that. Take your next ball of clay and put it right on top of that. And it's like really well adhered on there. I can't even, I'll use all my strength and I can't pull it up. No, I'm just kidding. So now, same thing. Slowly turning. Just tapping it rhythmically. I'm not even looking at it. Like I don't need to look at it. I'm just doing it rhythmically. And I'm not going super fast, I'm just going slow. So it's like, all I'm doing is turning it into a dome and getting it really nice and stuck on there. And also getting a lot of the bumps off it. Then I get more water, put some water on top, both hands wet.